we've even seen like some of the governors starting to look at how can they get financial literacy taught even as young as in high school. And I think that is such a good thing. Financial literacy and understanding, again, and I said on your podcast, I talked about when I got my loans, nobody talked about how I was ever going to pay these things back,
right?
Or how much. I mean, when I saw all the zeros, I was kind of like, well, that's kind of interesting. I had no idea really what I was agreeing to.
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello. This is Jennifer J. Yay, Hammond. And I have such an amazing guest today. Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. You are doing something that I want to say is just, I'm so passionate about. You have decided to take your own life story and really share it with people so that they can learn from it. So first of all, I'm going to do and I had such pleasure. Thank you for having me as a guest on your show. But before we tell people about your show, tell us a little bit about you and how did you started a podcast because of your experience. So share your story. Please share it.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you for having us back on your show. We love your show. Yay. Love the positivity, super inspirational. And of course, we loved having you on our show as well. So for us, really, we started off as people who were in the middle of the student loan crisis, I'll call it. We experienced back-to-back financial crises. And in the middle of all of that, our generation was graduating from school in a world that no longer wanted to employ young people that didn't have any experience because everybody was hurting financially. And we realized that we needed a solution that helped people pay off their student loans so that they could move on with life, really do things like, purchasing a house, but also like starting families or starting a business or doing whatever else that they want to do to become productive members of society, right? Because being productive members, as from Ray Dalio's book Principles will tell you, is what allows for us to move society forward, right? It's our productivity that makes us human. It's like one of the most human elements. So we worked on a solution that failed. It was a student loan registry. And so we learned from our users that they didn't feel comfortable just like being like, hey, can you please donate to my student loan fund? So instead, we pivoted and realized that nonprofits that we were helping were really in need of qualified help. So in the middle of that, we really created our version of our startup now called Start New. And that led to us having so many conversations about student loans that people said, you guys should just start a podcast. So we did. And it's a fun opportunity where we get to meet so many cool people and have awesome conversations about financial inclusion, lifting everybody up so that we all win together. So that's a little bit about us. And I'm so excited to chat with you today.
So I'm so excited because, financial inclusion, that's such a great phrase. And I talk a lot about financial literacy. And I think that the interesting part is I know that we've even seen like some of the governors starting to look at how can they get financial literacy taught even as young as in high school. And I think that is such a good thing, right?
Such a good thing. Florida did that. So Florida actually proposed legislation where now financial literacy is going to be a part of our school system at young ages. And I think that's actually really important. I know that different people have different opinions about different states, but objectively speaking, we have to say that's a win, right? To start teaching financial literacy at an early age. Prior to that news, the most I heard about financial literacy taught in schools was from the Choose FI Foundation, which is a foundation that for free, they teach financial literacy classes in underserved communities, which is so beautiful. But to systematize that and make it a part of our curriculum, I'll repeat myself, sorry.
That's perfect. I think that sometimes we have cats that join us. Sometimes we have kids. Sometimes we have all sorts of things. And I think one of the things I love about podcasts is the fact that we can just be ourselves. And I love it. So I think that it is really important, as you said, that is really, we have to find ways, and you said systematize, which is a great word also, because I want to make sure that we're also getting the truth. Because one of the things that I've done is that I do this Facebook Live every Wednesday on updates about your credit score, and I have an amazing gentleman who, he actually was one of the founders of a company called Lexington Law, which is one of the big law firms that really works on people's credit. But what he realized very quickly was credit repair was not the only thing that needs to be done. We actually need to understand like if you could peek behind the curtain at the Wizard of Oz, what are the people, in the financial, and it's actually a software. That's the thing you need to learn about as well, is there's a software that's judging you, which I'm like, I feel like I'm judged all the time. And the last thing I need is some stupid software judging my decisions.
Now technology is judging us too.
Exactly. And but it's true. Every time you swipe your credit card, you're being judged because you're being tracked, and they know every last little bit of what decisions you make. And so financial literacy and understanding, again, and I said on your podcast, I talked about when I got my loans, nobody talked about how I was ever going to pay these things back,
right?
Or how much. I mean, when I saw all the zeros, I was kind of like, well, that's kind of interesting. I had no idea really what I was agreeing to. And in some ways, I'm just so grateful that I found real estate and that I was able to pay off my student loans so fast. But I think for so many people, their lives get ruined because they don't have the financial literacy and they don't find a vehicle to pay off their loans. So I think it's awesome. You said you've worked with a couple other nonprofits. What other nonprofits would you talk about if someone isn't as lucky as being in Florida, or they're quite frankly an adult? I hate when we have to admit to being adult and not understanding things, because you feel like you should. I mean, again, that's why I say like the FICO scores and all these credit people, who are judging us. And when you feel like you don't want to confess that you don't know something, because of course you should have known it, but who was going to teach you all these financial literacy things?
It's like, okay, you've reached a stage, figure things out on your own. And it's like, oh, okay. Community just ended. Did nobody tell me? No notice, nothing. So I think I feel for those struggling with hashtag adulting, because you do have to figure, and I'm struggling too. Like everybody's struggling, by the way. I'm not saying that I figured everything out at all. But I think there's a lot of opportunity now that we have technology, now that there's so many vehicles for sharing information. We can now give each other tips, be our own community, because are we going to wait for somebody to judge us, or are we going to go out there and help somebody who needs to find out? So.
And I think what you just said, I think that's a beautiful way to put it. I remember that was one of the things I learned very quickly. I actually had studied with some Native American tribes. And one of the things that they said to me, and I remember thinking about this, and I just took it and I made it part of my life, is that you don't really understand something until you can teach someone else whatever it is.
Yes.
And that for me is part of the reason that I immediately got into education with real estate. Not only I help real estate agents who are coming, and I mean new ones to, experienced ones. We're all needing to learn because everything's changing. But even real estate investors, if we don't learn and continuously learn and learn how to help each other understand something, because again, so often we have learned to just nod our heads and pretend that we understand when we don't really get it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of value to just raising your hand and being like, I don't get it. Please help me. But that takes a place that you might not be yet emotionally. So I'm happy to openly share if somebody is struggling with student loan debt, I have some advice, and you don't have to ask anybody. I'll just tell you. So if you are still in school, struggling with student loan debt, I encourage you to try to use side hustles, try to use a method like what you use, Jennifer, working while you're in school, sort of using other sources of income to pay off the interest at minimum while you're in school, because the interest grows. And I didn't know this while I was in school, but the student loans that you take out while you're in college, if you take it out freshman year, by the time you graduate, if you haven't paid the interest, that's capitalized and it's added on. They tack it on to what's called your principal. So now you may think that you took out $10,000, but by the time you graduate 4 years later, it might be 15. So let's start tackling that interest while you're in school. If you have that opportunity, that's a huge opportunity. Next, I would strongly suggest creative ways of paying off your student loans, which is low times, but high value. Something like real estate, for example. Real estate is a great way to get into a side hustle, quote, starting as a side hustle, but could end up as a career. I've seen it obviously end up very profitably for so many people. But using those side hustles that don't take a lot of time, but have a high reward to pay things off more quickly so that you, my friend, have time to work on your career, have time to take care of your family, have time to study if you're still in school. That's another tip that I would sort of offer. And then the third tip is really using your impact. So whatever you think your purpose is, the reason why you're here, use that to help others. And I promise you, you will get a reward from it. And it doesn't seem like that because some people are like, well, I just love like volunteering at homeless shelters. Well, there's a solution for you. You can use Start New to volunteer, help people, and get your student loans paid. If you're like, oh, but I just like working in nonprofits, you can work in nonprofits and either wait 10 years to do public student loan forgiveness, or you can use what you've learned at a nonprofit to create an online course that is for profit where you make enough money to pay off your student loans. So there's so many different ways that you can start tackling. But the first thing I think starts with mindset. You have to believe that you can do it. You have to trust yourself. You have to affirm with positivity that you are going to be debt free. And one day, not even only debt free, but financially free, the next level.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because you made me think about something. Unfortunately, my sister recently confessed. Remember, I told you, well, if somebody goes to your podcast and listens to this and then listens to mine, one of the things I thought was really interesting is she recently confessed she has not paid off her student loans. And it's been over 20 years. And I was just like, what? And I mean, it was weird moment for us because I realized we've lived very different lives. And I think that, over the years, she never was comfortable coming to me and telling me that. But the silver lining, I'd like to say, is she decided to create an Etsy store. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Love it. Yes.
And it's so cool because she's doing something that was always one of her hobbies. She loved to go to like estate sales and thrift stores and stuff and find these really cool little vintage things from like the 80s or 90s. And now that's what she does. And she's paying everything from her Etsy store. So my only thing I always wanted to add to your tips is that it's never too late. Even if you're listening to this and you're out of school and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to get out from underneath it? When you decide, again, what you said in the beginning also is really important. It's your mindset. When you decide, there's so many different ways. And I highly encourage people to listen to your podcast and listen to all the different stories, because we can learn so much from listening to other people's experiences and their shared, ups and downs to help us know what's the thing that we could do that would change our lives and our financial future.
Absolutely. And I agree. Like, it's never too late. Just because time has passed, it doesn't mean that your goals, dreams, opportunities aren't equally as valid.
Yeah. So if people want to get in touch with you, one of the things I'm dying to know. So have you guys decided to do a book yet or not?
Oh, so many people are asking us this.
You're going to
Something is coming this year, actually.
Okay, good.
This is the first public announcement that we made, but yes, something is coming down the pipeline this year. Good. You had an inkling. I can't announce it yet, but you are so close. I think that I will come back to announce it.
Good. Okay, good. Well, you're welcome anytime. And I think it's so important, again, that people realize how important it is to just be creative and to know that, anything is possible, no matter how dark it seems, especially when you look at your student loan and you go, holy Moses. And again, I think you probably even know the statistic. I didn't look it up right before I came on, but there's an awful statistic that the student loan, as we call it, epidemic, or this whole horrible thing that's going on right now, is the number one thing that's preventing first-time home buyers from buying their first property. So we need you.
I'm not surprised.
So good to know. The book is coming out soon, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you before. You're going to share with us.
No.
So I want to know people to know where your podcast is, website, everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Book details coming soon. But podcast is the Student Loan Podcast. You can reach us by just thestudentloanpodcast.com on Apple or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find us obviously at startnoo.com. That's STRTNOO because, millennials, Gen Z, they don't spell correctly. And we're on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. Just Start New and you will find us. And I'm super accessible. I love hearing from people and I love running into people. I've actually run into listeners and have great conversations. So don't hesitate to reach out to us on any of the platforms. We're super accessible.
That sounds fabulous. Well, I want to make sure, as you know, I love the yay. So I'm going to ask you to lift your voice and say yay with me as we go off the air. Okay?
Oh, yes. I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Yay!
Hi, I'm Jack Canfield. You may know me as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. And if you want more help in getting from where you are to where you want to be, I want to encourage you to listen to the Jennifer Hammond Show